Hello friends, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good
Yes, good evening guys. How are you?
Fine, sir.
Yes, that's great. Yes, so three papers done, one more to go in group one and obviously four more in group two, right? So irrespective of how the exams have gone, right? If it has gone on the expected lines, excellent. Keep that momentum going, keep that confidence and score, use that confidence to score more in law so that you end up with great marks. If it has not gone on the expected line, still nothing to worry. Okay, nothing to worry. Instead of thinking about what has gone wrong, you have a wonderful opportunity in the form of law to compensate it. Okay, so focus on law for the next 1.5 days. Whatever has happened in the first three papers, don't worry about it. Just focus on what is there, what we have to do the next 1.5 days, right? So that's the ultimate agenda of this session. Next 1.5 days, what should we focus on? What are the things that we have to take care? That is the point that we'll be discussing, and nothing technical, no technical aspects will be discussed. It's just the requirements in the next 1.5 days that we will be looking into. So with this, shall we start the session?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So corporate and economic laws. It is since this being the last exam in the old scheme, old scheme of old syllabus rather, it is expected to be a little easier when compared to the earlier papers. So that doesn't mean that we should be complacent, we should be relaxed. You put in your normal efforts. So wherein in your normal efforts, if you're expected to get 60, you'll get 75 or 80, right, in this paper, which helps you to score well in group one. So that is our approach. That should be our approach. So be stronger than your excuses. No excuses will work, right? Ultimately, it's the result that we are looking into. So whatever has happened is done. What we have to focus is what we have to do in the next 1.5 days, and ultimately hard work, right? That's what is there. Yes, intelligence, genius is required. It is only 1%. Genius is what? 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. It's the hard work that we put, that ultimately the efforts that we put ultimately bears the impact. So what we'll do is first 10 minutes, the general points which we have already learned or discussed about in the previous three sessions, a recap of the same, which is important. Next 40 minutes, what should we do in the next 1.5 days? And last 10 minutes, again, a conclusion part, which we will be looking into. Fine. Coming to this paper, the last exam of group one, right? So as I said earlier, whatever has happened is happened. So we have to give our best here to maximize our potential, maximize our marks. This question paper, similar to auditing, has two parts. One MCQ, descriptive. Now, since we have done with auditing today, you know how the MCQ papers would be. However, for MCQs, do we have to do a separate preparations? No. Right? You're approaching both set of the question papers as one. So no separate preparations required. However, while answering the MCQ questions, read the question carefully. Okay, understand the requirement. Don't come to conclusions just by having a brief reading of the question. No, read it carefully. It's okay even if you read the question twice. It's definitely not a time waste. It's worth it. Okay, read the question twice. It's definitely worth, because ultimately it's 30 marks that we have MCQs. We can definitely take 30 minutes, and within 30 minutes we can answer all 30 questions or 30 marks related MCQ questions comfortably. It is possible. So read the question carefully twice, and more importantly, once you read, yes, you know the answer correctly, but in that hot seat while filling the OMR, don't make mistakes. Okay, reconfirm yourselves with the same question number, correct question number. You're circling the correct option, reconfirm, and then share it. So fill in the OMR correctly, and don't make the blunder of skipping any MCQs. There is no negative, right? No negative marking here. So don't skip any MCQs. Even if you do not know, you can always second guess and answer, right? That's with regard to MCQ questions. And because of these MCQs, you can definitely score well in this paper. Okay, 60 plus is a easy job. It's definitely possible because of this MCQs. Target good marks in MCQs. Coming to descriptive part, out of the 70 marks, when you are answering, again, we have to read the question carefully. Why? Understand the requirement. The important thing is, yes, we will read the question. Then in the question, if they are talking about independent directors, we'll write everything regarding independent directors. No, that's not required. What is required in the question? Answer to the point. For that, we need to read the question carefully, understand the requirement, and write the best question first. Which first impression is the best impression. So whichever question gives you the highest mark, all sub questions together, that is the question that you will be answering. Okay, so write the best question first. That is the reason that first 15 minutes become very important. Reading time, right? That 15 minutes is the time wherein you will decide which are the questions that you will be answering in the order. So that is very important. Utilize this 15 minutes reading time to your best. Okay, so again, well, I'll discuss about that reading time, what to do in that reading time later. So write the best question first. Now, some questions might be a bouncer wherein you don't know what to answer, right? So in that case, there you have to read the question again and again. There will be some hint in the question that will help you to answer. Okay, look for the hint in the question. Definitely in this paper, you will have such hints. And while answering, focus on the format. Format in the sense, there is no structure as such. There is no fixed format as such, but we have to present the paper in a structured manner. What is the structured manner? Do not write in paragraphs. Okay, don't write the answers in paragraphs, always in pointers. And you always bring in the provisions of the law first, facts of the case, your analysis based on these two, provisions and facts, your analysis, lastly, conclusion. Okay, this is the order in which you'll write. And do you have to write the heading like provisions of the law, facts of the case? No, don't do that. You need not write that. You have to just bring it in this order. So start with the provisions of the law as per the provisions of so and so section of the Companies Act, and you will bring the provision. Do we have to write the provision by heart as per the Bare Act? The answer is no. Right? You can definitely write it in your own words. The only thing is there will be some keyword in that particular provision. That key term has to be brought in. Okay, ensure that that is there. Okay, so format of answering is very important. The same answer presented in paragraph, same answer presented in this structure definitely will be evaluated differently. Because ultimately, evaluators are human beings, right? So they also expect it in a certain manner. So focus on answering, focus on the format, preferably in the next 1.5 days. Once you're reasonably done your preparation, especially maybe on the day of the exams, right? Answer 2 or 3 questions, right? It could be any of the RTP questions as well. Write those answers in the format that we want to write it in the exam, so that you'll get the flow. It will be easy in the examination. Okay, so that you can do it. That would be better. And while answering, don't quote wrong sections. Even if you do not quote any section numbers, that's fine. But don't quote wrong sections. If you have doubt, if it is a 50-50 scenario, please do not write the question. Rather section number. Don't write the section number. If you know the section number, very good, well and good. Subsections, etc., it's not so, it's not expected. However, if you know, definitely you can write. That definitely add value. Section, if you know it, definitely write, especially in Companies Act. Okay, in other laws, in economic laws chapters, you're not expected to write the section numbers. Maybe some sections in SEBI, etc., if you know, you can definitely write. And if you do not know the section numbers, if you know at least the chapter headings. Okay, chapter headings in the Companies Act is exactly same what is there in the study material. So institute has used the same chapter headings, what is there in the act. So if you know the chapter headings as per the provisions of the so-and-so chapter of the Companies Act, definitely allowed. Okay, that's also allowed. If you do not know the chapter headings also, fine, you just write as per the relevant provisions of the Companies Act. Okay, but do not quote wrong sections. And you can use charts, tables, definitely. It's good. It brings out the answer in a better manner. Tables, whenever they ask us to differentiate, bring it in table format. Okay, bring it in columnar format, so that it will be easy for the evaluator to identify the difference and give the marks, award the marks. And focus on writing qualitative answers than quantitative. As I said, when they give a question regarding independent directors, it's not that we are writing everything related to independent directors. No, we're not writing pages here. We're not here to fill up the pages. We're here to write on to the point. Even if it is a 4 marker or 6 marker, even if you have written 3/4 of a page, If it contains the required answer, they will award you full 6 marks or full 4 marks, whatever it is. Okay, so it's qualitative answers that is important. And as I said, utilize the reading time. This 15 minutes very important. What we have to do in those 15 minutes? In those 15 minutes, first you have to go through all the questions. You are not reading all the questions completely. Don't do that. You just read through the lines. You'll understand what is the requirement, and you will get to know which are the answers that you know the best. Right? So that is the first thing that you will do. Once you do that, you'll be fixing upon which are the answers that you're writing in the order. Okay, so once you fix that order, follow that order itself, because you have already decided. Again, you need not waste time while answering on again rechanging the order, etc. Not required, because you have already decided. You have fixed the order in which you'll be writing the answers. And if even after doing that, if you have time, you can start recollecting the points on what to write for each of those answers. Right? What to write on each of those answers, and maybe the last page of the answer sheet, you can use it as a rough page, and you can jot down some of the points. Maybe if you feel that you might miss out while answering later, you can bring those points at the last pages in the as you can use it as a rough sheet. So whenever you're answering that question, you can go back to that page. You will get those points to be answered. So that helps you to answer it quickly and in the right manner. Right. So that is the thing that you have to look into in this reading time. Very important 15 minutes that you have. Okay, so utilize it to the best. So you can use the last page for rough use. Frame the answers in your mind before writing. So in those 15 minutes, you can do that. Okay, if time doesn't permit, fair enough, nothing to worry. While answering itself, you can spend 30 seconds or maximum 1 minute on framing your answers in the mind. Framing the answers in the sense, it's not word to word, it's a structure. So what are the points that have to be covered? So you can spend 30 seconds, you'll get the flow. Once you have that structure in your mind, your answers will be presented in a better manner. Okay, so frame your answers before writing and use simple language. We need not reproduce the Bare Act, as I said earlier, right? So simple language, but appropriate words have to be used. Those important terminologies. Then legible handwriting. We need not have a beautiful handwriting. Handwriting should be such that evaluator can read and understand it. That is sufficient. So focus on, if the handwriting is not so legible, focus on that a little and maintain normal speed. Okay, normally in law exams, time should not be an issue. However, because of that, don't be relaxed. Have a fixed approach, have a regular approach for that. Whatever is your normal speed, go with that normal speed. Why normal speed? When you're going in your normal speed, your thinking mind would be in a best manner. That would be optimum thinking capacity, rather than going at a lesser speed or a higher speed. Right? So always have a normal speed in writing and structure your writing flow. First 30 minutes, focus on MCQs. First 30 minutes. Why? Because first 1 hour is the important time in the examination. Out of 3 hours, first 1 hour. First hour is the golden period. Why? Because in first 1 hour, how you perform, that determines your marks. In the first 1 hour, if you are sure of around 30-35 marks, then it reduces your pressure drastically. It helps you to perform better in the next 2 hours. Okay, so first 1 hour. How to ensure that we'll be getting 30 to 35 marks? First 30 minutes, focus on MCQs. Focus on MCQs. So out of those 30 marks of MCQs, even if you're assured of 20 marks, which is definitely possible. Definitely possible. I'm talking about the minimum marks, 20 marks. Next half an hour, the best answer that you're writing. Okay, the best answer that you're writing. Out of that, let's say you're answering one question, 14 marker. So out of this 14 marks, even since that is the best answer that you're writing, even if you get 10 marks in that, you're expected to get 10 marks because that's the best answer that you're writing, right? So you're assured of 30 marks in the first 1 hour. Right? So this is how we have to approach. This is how we have to approach. So first 1 hour MCQs plus one best question that you know. This ensures that you are assured of 30 marks. The balance marks that we require to minimum passes 10 marks. We have 2 hours with us. That will definitely relax you. That helps you to score better. In the next 2 hours, definitely we can score 30 plus possible. Okay, so that's how we will be targeting. That is the reason I said normal speed is required. We should not be too complacent. And these are again no-brainers. We should not miss these things. Correct question numbers. We will write the answer, but sometimes we miss to write the question number, or we write a different question number, right? So don't do those mistakes. And it's not that we do that intentionally. In that hot seat, that will happen. That will definitely happen. So ensure that those things doesn't happen. And attempt extra question also. You will have time. Whatever you know, you write, just in case if that was not part of the question paper or not part of the syllabus, or if there is some error in the question, if they award grace marks, you might get full marks there, right? So whatever you know, even if you don't know anything, whatever is there in the question, reframe it in a form of an answer and write it and come. But attempt that extra question also. If paper is standard, don't panic. Okay, evaluation will definitely be easy. Stay there for 3 hours. Whatever you know, just write those answers and come. Definitely it will be possible. Okay, don't stop writing until 5 p.m. Right, 3 hours. Whatever we have done for the past 2 years, 2.5 years, our preparations, we have attended classes, we have sacrificed our sleep, sacrificed our happiness, our pleasures. Why? For these 3 hours. So we have to utilize those 3 hours to the fullest extent. So we are not relaxing before 5 o'clock. And as I said earlier, first hour is very crucial. First hour determines your performance. So do the best in the first hour. Answer all those questions that you know the best. And while take all the stationaries, including calculator. For law, why calculator? Don't miss. There will be some practical questions that they can ask. And in the exams, we know in the heat, even 2 plus 2 will become difficult. Calculation of 2 plus 2 becomes difficult. So please carry calculators for law exams also. Okay. So these are some of the things that we have to keep in mind. Right. Now coming to the subject. Subject specific, as we all know, it is divided into 2 parts, company law and economic laws. Company law 60 to 65 mark, economic laws 30 to 35 marks. Now in company law, these are the chapters that we have. As I say at the end here, all topics are important. We cannot skip anything. However, we need to prioritize the chapters. Some chapters we have to give extra time. Some chapters can be finished quickly, depending on the requirement, depending on the amount of marks that can be asked in the exams. Directors, meetings of board, and KMP. The first 3 chapters in company law, very, very, very important. 25 to 30 marks will be asked from that chapter, from those 3 chapters together. But the problem there is, all those provisions are very standard and it is very time consuming because the contents are very large, right? So time consuming and standard. So we need to plan accordingly. We cannot miss those 3 chapters. And rather, if we start reading, it will take time. So we have to plan accordingly. We have to fix some time. Next 3 chapters: inspection, inquiry, investigation, prevention of operation mismanagement, compromise, arrangement, and amalgamation. Very simple. It's just that we need to spend some time there. Very simple. They are just procedural in nature. We need to just write the procedures in the exam. We'll get full marks, 10 to 15 marks, and we can score maximum there. Okay, in the first cluster, ultimately questions can be analytical. So there might be chances of we losing marks there. But here, no, it's straightforward questions that would be asked. So we can score maximum. Then we have some miscellaneous like NCLT, special courts, foreign company, that is companies incorporated outside India, important chapter. In miscellaneous provisions, we have removal of name, which can be important, dormant company, punishment for fraud, registered valuer, Nidhi company, important. So these together, 20 marks, these are very simple and easy. Okay, you have to just read the provisions, you will get through it. And lastly, we have winding up, 5 marks. This is easy, but it is very lengthy. For 5 marks, it is not worth it to read the entire chapter. So there we have to plan. Certain topics are important. Those are the topics that we have to focus on. And drafting resolutions, of late, they are not asking. However, we can just have a brief revision on that chapter as well. Coming to economic laws, we cannot miss IBC and PMLA. IBC and PMLA, this material that we have shared put together might be some 70-75 pages, but that will give you 15 to 20 marks. Okay, so very, very, very important 2 chapters which we cannot miss. Then we can focus on SEBI, especially LODR in SEBI, and FCRA. Okay, because they are reasonably lesser syllabus when compared to the next chapters, and important as well, 10 to 15 marks. 10 to 15 marks. LODR and SEBI, yes, reasonably time consuming. Then coming, the last one is FEMA and Arbitration Conciliation Act. 5 to 10 marks will be asked, but it's very time consuming, especially FEMA. Huge syllabus is there. So accordingly, we can look into. So these are the topics that we have. Individually, chapter wise, which are the topics that we have to focus on? That we will look into. See, the first chapter, appointment and qualification of directors. As I said, these three chapters, this cluster is very important, right? For the first chapter, you can spend 2 hours. Okay, in the next 1.5 days, even though we say we have 1.5 days, 24 plus 12, 36 hours, effectively, we'll get 20 hours of preparation. That's all, right? We'll get 20 hours. These 20 hours, how to utilize. So that is what we'll be discussing. So for the first chapter, you can give 2 hours. What are the things that we have to cover in those 2 hours? Minimum and maximum number of directors. Their exceptions are important, right? Exceptions are there for maximum directors. Then directorships, number of companies in which a person can become a director. Then DIN related procedures, application for DIN, amendment of DIN, and surrender, cancellation of DINs. Then rotation and retirement, very important. 160 appointment procedure is important. 160 procedure is followed, no one can question the appointment, right? Then additional director, casual vacancy director, alternate director, nominee director, section 161. So those things there, in some cases, board meeting resolution is required. So those are the small things that we have to focus on. Then women director, applicability, small shareholder director, applicability, independent director, qualification becomes important. Then that independent director data bank, the test related, for whom it is exempt. There are amendments that have happened in the last 2 years. So questions can be focused on that. So independent directors, very, very important. Then separate resolution for appointment. So you cannot club appointment of multiple directors in one single resolution, exception. Then disqualification, 164, vacation of office, 167, resignation, 168, removal, 169. These are all important. So those clauses which are there in the disqualification, vacation, resignation is a procedural aspect. Removal is procedure. Focus on those things. Then meetings of the board and its powers. Again, you can spend 2 hours there. Frequency of the board meeting. What is the frequency for Section 8 company, small company, dormant company, etc. Separate. Then video conferencing, that can be asked in the exam, the things that to be taken care. Then quorum for the meeting. Then circular resolution. Those 3 points that we have to write there. To be considered as circular resolution, necessary papers have to be sent. Then powers of the board, section 179, 179(3), those things which have to be exercised in board meeting only, with some exceptions. Then restrictions on the power, section 180, special resolution cases, 4 cases. Then contribution to charitable funds, 181, political party, 182, national defense fund. So these are simple cases. Here there is a limit for charitable fund, 5%, beyond 5%, what? Political party, no limit, but there are some disclosure requirements. National defense funds, no limit. So those are the things to be looked into. Then loan to directors, 185, LGSI procedure, 186, very important. These 2 sections we cannot miss. Very, very important. 186 procedure, whatever we have discussed in the class, plus 185 loan to directors. There are 3 different parts: prohibited, allowed subject to conditions, freely allowed cases. So those are the things to be focused. Then related party transaction, 188. Disclosure of interest, general interest, special interest, 184.1, 184.2. Then committees, these are the committees. Section 177 and 178 is talking about audit committee, nomination remuneration, stakeholders relationship, and vigil mechanism, applicability, their composition. These are the things that they can ask. Then 192, non-cash transaction with the directors is prohibited or is not allowed. However, in some cases, if they follow certain procedure, it is allowed. Right? So these are the things that you have to focus in the second chapter. Coming to the third chapter, appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel, reasonably smaller when compared to the first 2 chapters. So 1 hour is sufficient. Okay. So these are the time limits that we have to spend there. We cannot spend more than 5 hours for this because we have to read other chapters as well. These are not the only chapters in the syllabus. So definition of managing director, whole-time director, manager. There are differences between a managing director, manager, managing director, whole-time director. So focus on that. Tenure of appointment, additional disqualification given in 196. Apart from 164, there is some additional requirements. Focus on that. Mode of appointment, whether it is Schedule 5 appointment or central government appointment. If Schedule 5 appointment, apart from this 196.3, Part 1 conditions also have to be followed. Correct? Schedule 5 Part 1, there are conditions. So focus on those conditions. Then managerial remuneration, profit making, inadequate profits. In case of inadequate profits, effective capital, now limits is given in Part 2 for both managerial personnel, other than managerial personnel, independent directors, other directors are also eligible now in case of loss-making companies. So 2 limits are given now. So focus on those. Practical questions can be asked there. Okay, then compensation for loss of office of a director or rather managerial personnel, other directors. 2 separate sections we have discussed. Appointment of KMP, applicability, and who are the KMPs that have to be appointed. Then secretarial audit, applicability can be asked with regard to secretarial audit. Okay, these are the things that we need to focus in the first 3 chapters. Coming to the next cluster, we have inspection, inquiry and investigation, section 206 to 229. 1 hour we can spend for this chapter and it is worth. What are the things? First, we have inspection. In 206, we have different routes of inspection. That chart that is there in the material. ROC, inspection by central government. In types of investigation, coming to investigation, there are 3 sections, 210, 212 and 213. Right? In 210 itself, there are multiple ways, right? Multiple types of investigation. The chart that we can refer. So procedures to be looked into. Powers of inspectors. Power to seize the books. What is the time limit in case of inspection? What is the time limit in case of investigation? Power to investigate related companies during the course. 219. Follow-up action. That what are the actions that can be taken by the ROC? Then 216, investigation into ownership. During investigation into ownership, they can restrict transfer of securities. They can freeze the assets. What is the time limit up to which they can restrict? Right, those are the things to be focused on. And protection, immunity given to employees. You cannot take action. You have to take tribunal's approval. There is a time limit, 30 days, etc. Focus on that. And immunity given to legal advisors and bankers. They can give. They are bound to give only limited information. What are those limited information? Have to be looked into. Next is prevention of oppression and mismanagement, 45 minutes. Here, who can apply for relief? Relief from oppression and mismanagement. Who can apply? So there is a, the limit on, there should be certain number of shareholders or certain number of members, etc. And what are the orders that NCLT can pass? Along with oppression mismanagement, there is one more discussion there, class action suit. Same thing. Who can apply for class action suit? Here, along with members, even deposit holders can apply. Right? Then against whom it can be applied? Here, even against auditors, against professionals can be applied, the consultants. Then what are the orders that NCLT can pass? These are the things that needs to be focused. Coming to the next chapter, compromise, arrangement and amalgamation. It's a simple 10-step procedure. Okay, procedure for compromise and arrangement. Simple 10-step procedure. If it is asked, we have to just bring out those 10-step procedure. Sometimes they can focus on one of those procedures. Out of the 10, one of those procedures as well. So procedural aspects, you can spend 45 minutes. Procedure for compromise and arrangement. Mergers and amalgamation. Then comes mergers and amalgamation. In compromise and arrangement, only those 10-step procedure. Coming to mergers and amalgamation, there are 6 methods. First one is section 232, normal merger and amalgamation. Same 10-step procedure as we have discussed in C&A. The only thing is those 10-step procedure has to be performed in both the companies or 2 or more companies who are involved in the mergers and amalgamation. Then fast track amalgamation, applicability, to whom it is applicable becomes important. Then foreign company, it says whatever is applicable in 232, same thing is applicable. Then transfer of shares, 235. Purchase of minority shares, 236. So what is the difference here? In 235, you will acquire 90% shares. Then a tribunal will give you the power to acquire the balance 10% compulsorily. Whereas what is 236? You already have 90% shares. Then you are offering a better price and purchasing the balance 10%. That's the difference between 235 and 236. So that can be asked. Then central government, 237, it says in the best interest, central government can amalgamate companies. Then next chapter, NCLT and NCLAT, a small discussion. You spend 15 minutes, you will be done with that chapter. What are the orders that NCLT can pass? appeal against NCLT, you will go to NCLAT. So NCLAT is jurisdiction. NCLAT can hear appeals against orders from NCLT, Competition Commission. So there are various things there. Look into that. And NCLAT order directly to Supreme Court, the time limits within which you have to go for the appeal. That can be asked in MCQs. Okay, so look into those things. Then companies incorporated outside India, small chapter, but important. One question can be asked there. 30 minutes you can spend there. Foreign company definition, very important. In foreign company definition, we have something called electronic mode, and they have listed down the activities that will be considered as electronic mode, which will be important. Okay, that is the area where most of the time they are focusing on. And annual returns can be asked. Annual returns, what are the annual returns to be filed? Financial statements and annual returns. Then filing of documents at the time of starting the company in India, that branch, whatever business, you have to register. And whenever there is a change, you have to intimate. And at the time of closure also, you have to intimate. Then prospectus related, normal prospectus provision that we have discussed in Inter, that we have learnt in Inter, will be applicable. Apart from that, there are some additional points to be taken care of. Okay, these are the things that are there in companies incorporated outside India. Now, coming to the next chapter. Compounding of offenses, adjudication, and special court. Spend 30 minutes there. You have types of offenses. What offenses are compoundable, what are non-compoundable, imprisonment and fine, imprisonment or fine or both, only fine. So the differences between compoundable and non-compoundable. Cognizable, normally all offenses are non-cognizable except fraud related, 212 SFIO related offenses, correct? Then mediation and conciliation panel related discussion, then special courts. Okay, then we have miscellaneous provisions and topics. There are multiple discussions. So you can spend 1 hour 15 minutes and it's worth. Removal of name procedure. One, we ourselves can apply for removal of name. Second, ROC itself can remove the name, right? So that procedure to be looked into. Restriction on application. In some cases, you cannot apply for removal of name. There are certain cases wherein you cannot apply. So that can be important. Then against the order passed by ROC striking of the name, appeals can be filed. In some cases, 3 years is the time. In some cases, 20 years is the time. So that has to be looked into. Then punishment for fraud. 447, what is the penalty? There are 2 penalties. One where amount of fraud exceeds 10 lakh and public interest is involved. Second case, amount less than 10 lakh and there is no public interest, right? 2 penalties given, look into that. Then there is a general penalty, 450, wherever there is no penalty specified in any of the offenses, come to this general penalty. So that also becomes important. Then dormant company. There, significant accounting transaction. What does not constitute significant accounting transaction has been specifically given in the law. That is important. Procedure for application of dormant status. Some cases you cannot apply for a dormant status, ineligibility. And in some cases, so on occurrence of certain transactions, you have to become an active company. So how to reapply for active status, procedure. These are the things to be looked into there. Then next topic is registered valuer. Who can act as registered valuer is given. Eligibility and qualifications is given. Penalty is given. Penalty can be asked. Okay, so that is important. The Nidhi company is very important because last year there was an amendment where they have revamped certain aspects of Nidhi companies altogether. Okay, so the material that was shared has the updated provisions as well. Focus on those things. It can be asked in MCQs. Right, incorporation related, incorporation with the company, it has to be a public limited company. Then minimum number of members that has to be there, 200. Then net owned funds, minimum net owned funds, term deposits, there is a limit. Out of that, unencumbered should be so and so. Share capital, there cannot be preference shares in case of Nidhi company. Dividends, what is the maximum dividend? 25%. Deposits, you can accept only to some extent. Loans, you can give only to some extent. Then directors related. Then rotation of directors, etc. Special points are there. Returns to be filed by a Nidhi company. Right, these are some of the important aspects. Coming to the next one, winding up. 1 hour 15 minutes we can spend. What are the things to be focused on here? We have types of winding up, voluntary winding up, compulsory winding up. Right, voluntary winding up and compulsory winding up. when it can be wound up. In this chapter, they're focusing only on compulsory winding up by the tribunal. So when can tribunal wound up? There is a list of cases. Ultimately, at the end, it says just and equitable basis. Who can file the petition? Contributories, ROC, central government. There is a list. Then filing of statement of affairs, audited accounts. If company itself is going, at the time of application itself, statement of affairs have to be given. If others are filing an application for winding up, once the winding up petition is accepted, there is a time limit given within which SOA and audited accounts have to be submitted. Then there are two committees: winding up committee, advisory committee. What are their constitutions and what are their roles? Look into it. Stay of suits, all the pending cases, it will be stayed. Contents of liquidators report. Liquidators report, basically it will be a summary of all the assets, what are their liabilities, what are their, etc. Set off. If from a shareholder you have to receive share application money or whatever, call money, and there is one amount that has to be paid to the shareholder in a different capacity, can it be set off? Look into that discussion. Share call, who can make? Once the winding up petition is accepted by the tribunal, who has the power to make the share calls? Then arrest of a person leaving India. Then order of priority of payment. Very important. Practical questions can be asked. Okay, focus on the order of priority of payment. Then focus on preferential creditors, the time limit. In some cases, it is 1 year. Related parties, it's a different one. Overriding preferential creditors. Who are preferential creditors? Who are overriding preferential creditors? What is the difference? Look into that in the order of priority of payment. Then fraudulent preference, the time limit that I was talking about. Transfer not in good faith, again time limit. Before the winding up petition, what is the time limit that we have to go back? Then drafting of resolutions, 15 minutes, just go through sample resolutions that's there in the material. That is sufficient. And hints in the first page of the CAPS material in that chapter, just refer that hints. If in case they ask you to draft any resolution, you can always do that with the help of that discussion. This covers corporate law. Coming to economic laws, the first chapter, SEBI Act and LODR. First, that chapter, 1 hour 30 minutes we can spend. What are the things that we have to look into? Constitution of SEBI. Removal of members. Who has the power to remove the members? Then powers and functions of SEBI. There are multiple functions that they have specifically given. Penalties. Unfortunately, they are focusing on penalties as well in SEBI chapter. Then adjudication and appeals related provisions. Appeals. Order passed by adjudicating authority, appeal to special director appeals, appeal to SAT, appeal to High Court, appeal to Supreme Court. The hierarchy of appeals have to be looked into. Then insider trading, price sensitive information. Who is an insider? What is insider trading? Penalty for insider trading. Right? Those are the things that is there in that. Then those are the things that is there in SEBI Act. Then coming to LODR. Composition of the board. Executive, non-executive directors, bifurcation is spoken about in LODR, which is not there in Companies Act. Coming to committees, very, very important. There are amendments that have happened last year. It's not for the first time that is applicable for your exams. However, since it is a last year amendment, can be asked. Audit committee related, nomination remuneration, stakeholders relationship. These are the same 3 committees, what we discussed in Companies Act. But there is difference between what we have discussed in Companies Act and what's there here. There we had vigil mechanism. Here we have risk management committee. Not applicable to all listed entities. So applicable to top so and so companies. Look into those. Then disclosure requirements regarding related party transaction, proceeds of IPO, business responsibility statement that has to be compulsorily given by listed entities. Then change in directors related provisions, etc. CEO, CFO certification, yearly basis. Then quarterly and annual compliances. There are some changes. Okay, so look into those things as well. So these committees related and a quarterly annual compliance can be important for this exam. Then next chapter, FEMA. Spend 1 hour 30 minutes there. There are lots to be discussed, but don't miss resident in India definition. Okay, we're not missing that. Very simple discussion. If asked, we can definitely score full marks there. And definition of person of Indian origin. Restriction on dealing in forex and foreign securities. Capital account transactions. There are different lists there. Prohibited, allowed with some permissions. Right? Look into those. Current account transaction. Again, there are various lists. Look into those things. acquisition and transfer of immovable property by a non-resident, by a person of Indian origin, by an NRI. 3 different discussions that we have looked into. That's part of the syllabus. Then export related. Then you have adjudication and appeals again here. Then you have import related. ECB, some changes that have happened, so can be important. ODI, very, very important. Now, overseas direct investment has been renamed as overseas investment. Okay, has been renamed as overseas investment. There is an overseas investment rules, overseas investment regulations, 2022. So look into those things, which can be important. These two can be important. Then we have FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010. Very simple discussion, but important. 30 minutes we can spend there. What is foreign contribution? Defined. Then section 3, prohibition related aspect. So for certain people, it is prohibited to accept foreign contribution. Then in some cases, it is allowed. And most of the cases, either you have to take registration or prior permission. So what is the process for registration or process for prior permission? Then power of central government to prohibit, restrict, even if you have registration or prior permission. Utilization for administration purpose. Okay, there is a limit. You can utilize only to that extent for administration purpose. What is administration purpose also has been defined. Then adjudication and appeals related. Application for revision of order. In the RTP, you have this. Some FAQs given. Okay, just look into those, glance those FAQs, just in case they ask in an MCQ or a simple question, we can answer that. Application for revision of order. It's some online process. So that process has been summarized in those FAQs. Okay, so look into those things. Then Arbitration and Conciliation Act, 30 minutes. Requirement of arbitration agreement, very important. If no agreement, no arbitration applicability. Right? Matters that can be referred to arbitration, anything other than criminal. Right? Matters that cannot be referred. Then proceedings of arbitration, types of award. There are 4 types of award that can be passed by an arbitrator. Then appeals against order, normally no. Special cases, yes, possible. Cost, who will bear the cost of arbitration? Then comes conciliation, matters referred to conciliation, difference between conciliation and mediation. There is a difference chart given in the table given in the material. Look into that. Proceedings of conciliation. Then we have PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, 45 minutes, 8 marks will be asked. Very important chapter. And it's very easy, straightforward. Definition of money laundering given in the discussion. Look into that. Proceeds of crime, property, scheduled offenses, and payment system. These are the 5 important definitions in this chapter. Okay, which we cannot miss. Then punishment for money laundering, very important. Normally it is up to 7 years. However, in case of imprisonment, in case of narcotic drugs related offenses, it can go up to 10 years. So be very careful with regard to that. In the question, they can specifically give that it is related to drugs, etc. In that case, we cannot write 7. We have to go with 10. Then obligation of banks, financial institutions, intermediaries. They have an obligation to report cash transaction report, then suspicious transactions report. So look into those suspicious transaction, cash transactions report, attachment of property related, provisional attachment. What is the time limit? Final attachment, order by whom, special court, etc. discussion, adjudication and appeals. The last chapter, again, very important. 10 marks will be asked from this IBC. Spend 1.5 hours. Comfortably, we can read it in detail. Definition of corporate guarantor, financial and operational creditor, corporate debtor. Important. These are the important definitions there. Then registration of insolvency professional. There will be an insolvency professional agency and ultimate control is with IBBI. So look into that registration process. Initiation of CIRP, section 7, 8 or 10. Very important. Application by financial creditor, section 7. Process of application. Operational creditor, section 8. What is the difference? In operational creditor, they have to give demand notice compulsorily before initiating the CIRP, correct? Section 8 and 9 talks about application by operational creditor. Application by corporate debtor themselves, section 10. Ultimately, in all the 3, what is common? Default. There should be a default. Who cannot apply for CIRP? there is a discussion there. Then time limit to complete 180 days. One time extension of maximum 90 days. However, overall cannot exceed 330 days. Then moratorium order. There will be stay order against various things. However, regular business activities will not be affected. Interim resolution professional will be appointed by NCLT at the time of admission of application. Committee of creditors will be constituted by IRP. Meeting will be conducted by IRP of COC. First meeting. In the first meeting, resolution professional will be appointed. Then in some cases, yes, resolution professional is the person who will be taking the decisions, but in some cases, he has to take prior COC approval, that to 66%. Normally it is 66, normally it is simple majority, 50, more than 50%. However, in major decisions, it has to be 66% approval. Right? So these are some of the cases. Look into them. Then RP is responsible to ensure that information memorandum is published. Then he will receive various resolution plans from resolution applicants. Those resolution plans will be brought into COC. They will approve one of it. That will be submitted to NCLT. If NCLT approves, CRP comes to an end, implementation starts. If NCLT rejects it, liquidation. Correct? Liquidation process. In case of liquidation, we have preference transactions. We have order of priority. There is a change here in the order of priority when we compare to winding up chapter. So be careful with regard to that. From this discussion also, practical question can be asked. So we have to be careful with regard to order of priority in winding up, order of priority in IBC. Then we have something called fast track CIRP. Who can go under fast track CIRP? The applicability becomes important. Here, what is different? Time limit, exactly half. 90 days, further extension of 45 days. Okay, fast track CIRP. Then PPIRP, a new addition made 2 years back. Right, pre-packaged insolvency resolution process. Applicability, it's applicable to MSME. Default amount is different here, 10 lakh rupees, correct? And the process, there will be a base resolution plan prepared that before making the application itself. So look into that aspect. Then voluntary winding up, it's a process, small discussion process that we have to look into. Okay, these are the discussions. So ideally, if we can complete all these by 9 a.m. on the day of the exam, then we can spend the balance, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours for revision of penalties in all the chapters. Just refer the CAPS material. So at the end of each chapter, we have those penalties list. Correct? Special resolution required list. So those summaries, just revise those summaries. Resolutions required, etc. Limits, whatever is given, and glance your RTP November 23 and the previous one, May 23 RTP. Just turn the pages. Just in case if the question is lifted from the RTP, you are well prepared with the answer. Okay, these are the things that we have to focus on in the next 1.5 days, and this is how we will be approaching. Fine. So these are the subject related aspects. Once we are done with these things, we would be prepared well, right? What we have to do is we have to just execute what we have done. So we go with the positive attitude, go with confidence. If we are confident, then your mind will work properly. So at any point in time, don't panic. Even if you're not getting any of the answers in the exam, nothing to worry. Just sit, relax yourself for 5 minutes, drink some water. Then again, look into the question paper. Which are those questions that you have reasonable hold of, answer those questions, then automatically your confidence will be built. Okay, so at any point in time, don't panic. Why? Because you have put in all the efforts for the past 2 years, 2.5 years. So it is bound to happen. You will definitely get through. Ultimately, I will not give you the timetable on what are the topics to be covered today, what are the topics to be covered tomorrow. I have just given you the structure on which are the topics to be focused more, what is the time limit, time that you can spend on each chapter. Ultimately, how to read, which are the chapters to be read today, tomorrow, that is your plan, that based on your comfort, right? So which are the topics that you're confident enough? So depending on that, you can plan out. However, have a plan. Okay, don't start your preparations without planning. Today, since it was an auditing exam, you would have been exhausted. So cover some simple topics if possible, right? And have a good sleep so that tomorrow you will be fresh, and from tomorrow morning, we start with those standard topics, those directors related discussions. Okay, so no specific timetable would given. don't wish for it, work for it. Right? We all wish to be a chartered accountant, but ultimately, if we do not work for it, it doesn't happen. Right? So that efforts is required, and it's not that we are in the initial stage of it. It's a matter of another 10 days. Correct? 11 days to be specific. So believe in yourselves. You become what you believe. If you believe that you will be a chartered accountant in another 1.5 months, definitely you will be. You are so close to the victory. It's a matter of another 11 days. You have to just work hard, put in the same efforts that you are putting for 11 more days. You will be done with your exams. So you're close, so close to the victory. Don't you dare give up now. Yes, at some point it will become definitely difficult. Whenever it becomes difficult, it feels that if you feel that no, I have put in, it's becoming very hectic. Just remember the efforts that I have put for the 2.5 months. Don't let it go waste. Okay, so have the same momentum, have the same Josh going in your preparation, same focus going for the next 11 days. It will definitely happen. Ultimately, repeat after me, I can do this. If you believe, definitely it will happen. With this, we will conclude, guys. All the very best for the exam. I'm sure you would have prepared well, and definitely it will be possible. You will go through. So nothing to worry. Just focus on revising all the topics. Ensure that you are comfortable, you are confident enough for the examination, for writing the exams. Is that clear? Any general thing or specific thing to be asked? To be discussed? No? No, fine then. We'll not waste time. So focus on your preparations. All the best once again, guys. We'll meet in the pass out meet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.